Welcome to the Answers Yes podcast, where we interview some of the most interesting people that have said yes to opportunities in their life. We hope that through these stories, you can learn to create your own destiny by saying yes along the way. Join us as we explore the new series covering topics such as passion, integrity, and hard work. I'm your host, Jim Riley, and I hope you enjoy these interviews as much as I do. I believe that everyone has an important message worth hearing. Hello and welcome to the Answers Yes podcast. Thanks for tuning in. I know I always say it, but man, I'm sure appreciative of your comments and your suggestions that I get throughout the week, especially your stories. I'm always encouraged by how you've utilized the podcast and the stories of our guests to make your own goals and have your aspirations to achieve more. So thank you for that. Today, I've got Jamy Bechler on the line. Good morning, sir. How you doing?
Hey, good morning, Jim. I appreciate you having me.
I just was browsing through your website and all the things that you're involved with. You've got a beautiful family. One thing that really resonated with me that just doesn't get talked about enough, I don't think it's probably in your world, but you're a pro advocate for adoption, and I just love seeing that on your website.
Yeah, you know, that has a whole long story to it, but that was one of the best decisions we've ever made. I mean, what a blessing Jalen has been in our life. He's 11 years old now, and we adopted him. We were able to take him right home from the hospital, but that was not something that I wanted to say, keeping with the podcast. I did not want to say yes to that.
Really? Okay.
I didn't not, it was nothing against Jalen. It was nothing against necessarily kids. It was all about, I was pretty wrapped up in my career. And my whole life was all about attaining goals and trying to be the best basketball coach. I know when you have kids, it changes your life, and I didn't really want that.
Yeah.
Did not really want my life to be changed that way.
Yeah.
And so I kind of fought it. I gave every excuse that I could to not go down the adoption path. And I was thinking, hey, this won't happen to us. We'll get in the system, but it takes forever, sometimes to get a family that wants you. And lo and behold, real soon after we got in the process, we got a call that said, hey, we have a child for you. And I was like, okay, how long? And they're like, 12 days from now. And I'm like, wow, that's crazy.
Yeah.
And then we go and meet with the birth mom, and they're so excited. They're like, yes, we just met with the doctor, and they're going to move up the adoption to a week. And I'm like counting on my fingers. I'm like, that's 5 days from now, 5 days from now. And I'm like, that's our opening game. Our opening night is that day. We can't do this. So I'm like, oh yeah, that's exciting. But I'm like, okay, she's gonna have the baby. It's supposed to be 8, 9 o'clock in the morning. That's cool. I'll be back in time for the game. Spend a couple hours with our new child, and do a dad thing, I guess, whatever that is, and get back for the game. And right now, all the moms, well, really all the dads listening to this are just rolling their eyes. They're like, you just did not know what you didn't know.
Yeah, rookie.
Yeah, absolutely. And so, needless to say, I missed that game. My assistant coach coached the game. But it was great. And it's one of those things where, it's one of the few things in life that I kind of fought against, and I'm sure glad that I didn't get my way. I'm sure glad that my wife got her way. I'm sure glad that things happened, because it's just been such a blessing. And my short-term, selfishness just to want to be a better basketball coach for one day or for a year wasn't worth the 11 years of joy that Jalen's brought in our lives.
Yeah, the gift of life is something special. I'm still fairly a new father. I've got a 5 and a 7-year-old. Had no idea what I was getting into. But, when you go through that process, you learn. Some of us are very fortunate. We're able to have kids without a skip, here you are, instant family. But some people they really struggle with the ability to have their own kids. And the option of adoption is such an incredible opportunity for people on both sides of that fence. So anyway, I just want to commend you for it. I saw it on your website, and kids just mean so much to me.
Thank you. Yeah. And I mean, to have that availability or that ability for somebody who, is pregnant and isn't going to be able to take care of their baby or their child the way that they think that they can or the way it deserves. And to be able to have loving families out there, the whole adoption process, I wasn't as familiar with it when we first started, but it's just amazing how many people are out there that are in the situation like you talked about, where maybe they can't have kids, or maybe they just want to go a different direction. I know couples that can have kids, but they just want to add to their family. They just want to have more, or they adopt internationally, or whatever it is. But it's just such a great opportunity for, as an alternative for a lot of other things, of, hey, we have this pregnancy and we have this couple that would love to have a child, and they can't for whatever reason, or circumstances don't allow them to have. And so, yeah, it's great. And, to raise a son or a daughter up as your own. And I mean, he calls us dad and mom. I mean, that's who he knows, he knows us. And it's just been amazing. But I will say I'm a lot dumber as a parent now. 11 years ago, I was an expert at parenting. I don't know where that knowledge went, because I'm not very smart anymore, but man, was I an expert back then.
I love your honesty. Hey, there's a lot of buzzwords on your website, and I know they're not just buzzwords. There's a lot of tangible work behind them, leadership and building champions, et cetera. Could you give us some of your early background, where you started in business, maybe even a job you had or business you had when you were in high school or something, but give us some background and some texture.
Yeah, well, I was a 20-year college basketball coach, and then I became a high school athletic director at a school that, had the 5th largest gymnasium in the world for high school, seated over 7,000, amazing, in Indiana basketball, Hoosier basketball. So I grew up in sports my whole life, and I worked in sports. I was passionate about leadership. My whole career as a coach, I was passionate about leadership. And one of the years I was an athletic director, I got certified as a John Maxwell leadership coach. And that was really the first time I had done that. The motive of doing that was to be a better athletic director, to be better as a leader. But that was the first time that I realized that maybe you could make money off of this. Like you could make a career out of being a leadership consultant, or make a career out of helping others be better leaders, not just your own team, not just your own athletic department, but others. And so I started looking into that more and more. And then I just kind of jumped 2 feet into the deep end. And I retired from organized athletics and jumped into the entrepreneurial space 4 years ago. And once again, kind of didn't know what I didn't know. It was like being a parent. I had no idea. I knew how to be a decent leader. I knew how to give speeches. I knew how to write some blog posts, but I really didn't know how to make it a business. I didn't really know how can I reach the most people with the most impact. And so that's been an ongoing process, and it's been great. It's been a great journey to get to really touch so many people along the way, whether it's been businesses or, middle school, high school, college, sports teams, even professional athletes, professional coaches. It's been a great journey to impact more than just the 15 players that I would have on my basketball team, or more than just the students that would be at that school. Even though there's a huge need for that, I saw that I had a strength that I was able to maybe go out and cast a wider net and maybe spread some influence elsewhere.
I love it. So I've learned, again, as a parent, that the best education, or the best way for our children to be educated, is through parent involvement. And, you made a decision to become a basketball coach at a point in your life. What helped mold that decision? Was it because you played on the team and you loved it and you just thought I could do a better job coaching, or you fell into it?
Well, I wanted to be a pro athlete. I think that's what every kid wants.
Sure.
And I was like, well, if this pro athlete thing doesn't work out, then I'll just be a coach. And so early on, my coaches let me know that the pro athlete thing wasn't going to work out. I probably should be a coach. But I'm in seventh grade, and my English teacher, Mrs. Shannon, she has this little library in the corner of her room, and we can check out books and read books and stuff. And she has a little sports section. And I read this book by John Wooden, the UCLA coach, who's won 10 national titles in a span of 12 years. Amazing coach. But the book is called They Call Me Coach. And and I read that, and I just loved the way that he interacted with his players, influenced his players, respected his players, helped his players, even whether they were starting or coming off the bench.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I would love to say I was a mature seventh grader. I wasn't mature enough to understand, hey, I want to be the guy one day that impacts people like that. But at that time, I was like, wow, I want to have a coach that does that. I want to have my coaches. I want to have a coach that impacts my life and cares about me, whether or not my shot's going in or not. And so that was my thought process. And then it started to mold as I started to get a couple great coaches in high school. It started to mold of, all right, these guys are kind of being like John Wooden. All right, maybe I could be this person. Maybe I could be this person one day because, hey, I got to make money someday. You know, I'm going to be married. I got to make money somehow.
Right.
So maybe I'll just be a gym teacher and a basketball coach, or I'll be a history teacher and a basketball coach one day. And then, like Mr. Dunn or Mr. Peacock, my coaches. Well, we get into college and I realized that, you know what, you can be a college basketball coach. You may not even have to teach. You can just be a coach all the time. And so I'm like, this is it. This is what I want to do. And so from there, I worked at my, not only being an athlete, but I also worked at seeing things from a coach's perspective.
Mm-hmm. Sure.
Not just seeing my tree, but seeing the whole forest. And so starting to understand all the little nuances and dynamics that go in, not only to coaching, but leading people. Because I would be with my buddies and they would be complaining about the coach. And I would be like, yeah, but don't you see why coach is doing this? And they're like, it doesn't matter. He's a jerk. Doesn't matter. This or that. It's like, yeah, but you're not seeing why coach is doing this. And so I would start to see these different, I'd start to see things more as a coach. And I was like, you know what? I want to do this. I want to be leading people. I want to help influence people and shape them. And so, so I became a coach, and I'd love to say it was all rainbows and butterflies from there, but it was a long process, and I was a head coach at the age of 27, an NCAA head coach at the age of 27.
Wow.
And then 4 years later, I was allowed to resign. I got resigned from that job. They let me go. Yeah. They let me go coach elsewhere. And it was kind of my stubbornness. It was kind of my, I cared about people, but it was all about, hey, follow me. Why can't you just do what you're supposed to do? I know what I'm talking about. Be compliant followers. And that was kind of the start of my realizing that leadership is more than just positions or titles or authority or status. It's about influencing other people. It's about getting people to walk alongside you to accomplish common goals. And, before I'm a young coach and I'm thinking it's just about compliant followers. It's just about, I'm in charge, do what I say.
Yeah. By the way, for my listeners, Jamy talked about John Wooden. Andy Hill was on one of my earlier shows who wrote John Wooden's autobiography, and they talk about the pyramid of success. Andy had spent some time on John's team. So thanks for bringing that up. What a great background John has and his whole pyramid of success. So, here you are trying to develop and put a system in place and get your team members to follow you. What were some of the things that worked for you, some of your tactics to be successful as a coach?
One of the best is, and I kind of talked about or alluded to it earlier, about seeing the whole forest and not just your tree.
Yeah.
But understanding other people's perspectives, seeing where they're coming from, knowing, kind of getting inside their head a little bit, and not like to be a shrink or not to mess with their head, but just kind of seeing how they see things. What's their paradigm? What's their the way they see the world. And John or Stephen Covey in his book, 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, one of those habits is seek first understand, then to be understood. And so many of us just try to get our point across, especially if we're in a managerial position or some kind of supervisory role or a leadership position. We try to be understood. Hey, understand what I'm saying. I'm telling you this for the good of everybody. But we don't understand someone else. And so we're not able to most effectively lead. And so that's what was kind of missing and lacking with me early on. And then I started to see the whole picture, because, Jim, you're in coaching, you coach people, you consult with people, even some high level people. The greatest athletes also have coaches, because you can't see the picture when you're inside the frame.
Yeah.
Sometimes you're so knee deep in the weeds, you can't see what's going on out there. And so you need help. Well, even as a coach for me,